After all the ships that attacked Y4 searched, even more information is finally coming out. For the first time, humanity can truly begin to fill in some of the lines, some of the holes, some of the territories of the known universe, which is actually even larger than first believed. As it turns out, the reptilians, the ones that kicked off everything at Zoro 2, are actually one of the strongest of these vile and venal vermin that are all about their vanity. The green elf-looking Chi-Chis are actually one of the weakest, yet they have been attempting to expand, though for no other reason than to show off to all the other species to show that they can. This is also a reason their ships were so easily defeated by human weapons. These turned out were not true warships, but instead it was a colonization group. Each of them was looking to brag that they had made the locals submit, turn the planet into something pretty, show off the spoils that they didn't actually earn, but spoils that they stole. This unbelievable desire to be on the top of the social ladder had led this large group to do something stupid. Bill remembers when he was very young, and a bunch of people on Earth ran into traffic to catch some sort of digital monster freaks. He's like, yep, we've seen this shit before. There are at least 5 other species that can be confirmed, and unconfirmed go up to another 15, though the evidence does suggest that one of these species, an unconfirmed one, has actually been wiped out for not adhering to the standards of vanity, nor were they remaining in this confined council of idiots. With the limited information, everybody was thinking the same thing, how it would be nice to meet another alien species that doesn't have their cranium fully inserted into their rectum. Yet, given the proximity to human space, the chances, even if this species was still around, of meeting them was very, very low. It was also really strange to humanity to see all the rest of the species forming a type of functional society based on this type of ethos. Across human history, it's action-packed with examples of these types of actions, along with its 6 other counterparts destroying entire civilizations. Across the HoloNet, this is the main topic of discussion, as everybody worried that they might get caught up in the same line of BS. Thankfully, humanity is getting old, as well as their entire population, even though they don't look it. They've gotten beyond these. Though it's clear that inside most ships that vanity does have a little bit to play in human culture. The practicality of the vessels themselves does far overshadow the amenities. However, one cannot deny that humans do desire something nice to look at. Still, it didn't take long for the conversation to move to more pressing matters. The most recent is the rebuilding of the Y sector fleet. This is an area of great interest, especially for Bill. With so much of humanity's resources and logistics focused on this area now, he's unable to get resources for his own construction. Aside from the paltry amount he receives from the dumpsters. This usually is marked for repairs anyway, so his new ship is going to be delayed again. And again. The crewmates aboard his own ship and on the space dock are given so much free time due to this, having very limited resources coming in, that they begin filling their time with other ways. A small island that Bill had officially purchased on Earth has now got a regular shuttle back and forth every 48 hours. The island itself is relatively small, so only a certain number can be present at one time. At one point, Bill and Aya actually almost pulled rank to spend time relaxing on the beach on that same island, but then they realized that if they decided to do that, they would be violating their own standards. They can't do that. The standard has to be upheld. If not, they could quickly lose control of the entire crew, as certain ones will immediately start thinking, I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm this, I'm that, I can take liberties and force others. No. They can't ever let that happen. When they finally got a chance to go down to the island, it was clear why the members of his staff and his crew enjoyed the island so much. Even in the open ocean breeze, as soon as Bill stepped off the shuttle, he could smell intimacy in the air. Looking around, almost no one was wearing anything, and it seems as though indulgement was the name of the game. A bit shocked, Bill and Aya just decided to go for a walk and walk around the island for a while. There they saw were exposed bodies lounging on the beach, swimming in the warm Pacific Ocean, even bursting up from the ocean themselves, fully exposing themselves before crashing back down as though they were some type of dolphin. Some were even using an old device that seems to use wind power to move a surfboard. And a few even anchored themselves on some sort of flotation device just past the breakers to fish. Some using a line, sitting there in the sun, and others diving into the ocean with a spear or spear gun. The short, colorful bodies of the crew species actually seemed to sparkle in the sunlight, a complete contrast to the furry, foxy personnel who seemed to enjoy the freedom of letting their fur into the air and simply fluffing it out and letting it air dry. None of them seemed to actually care that their bosses were actually walking around among them, well, except for the humans. The few that saw them immediately did the oh shit and just tried to reach for a towel. Bill would always just raise his hand and tell them he really didn't care. Just as long as you're not being an asshole about it, you're fine. Aya had already planned on doing the same anyway when she arrived, and she really didn't care. Especially since she's AI. A body is just a shell to her. It's like somebody wearing clothing. She could change it if she wanted, but she wouldn't mind showing off what she got. As they walked, Bill had to tell a few humans, relax, chill out, this is your time off. There was only one thing that made him a bit uncomfortable, and that was the fact that you couldn't get out of visual range of seeing a couple trying desperately to reproduce. Yet, they were almost always a mixed species. This is what made Bill a bit uncomfortable, but he did understand the logic in this. Without medical intervention, interspecies reproduction just doesn't happen at all, which means they can enjoy themselves as much as they want. And why not? They're on break. They're not on duty. Let them indulge. Later that day, while attempting to enjoy the beach, Bill and Aya, both laid out in the sun, spoke a little bit as they pondered if they would ever see Chi-Chis on this beach. Of course, as soon as Aya said this, realizing the sights that's going on, Bill looked down, he started laughing uncontrollably, and then, of course, so did Aya. They needed this laugh because eventually they were wondering if Cindy and Joe would actually enjoy this island as well, even if it's just to lay down in the sun on a pristine beach. Unfortunately, both of them are way too busy. Cindy and her crew were so busy with salvage operations that it was commonplace on her ship for them to work 80 to 100 hours straight. This was due to the extensive amount of debris in the sector, being only one of 4 of the massive cargo haulers in the area, which means there's a lot of salvage to pick up, process, and get to the space docks. Then they dropped their haul off and started all over again. Needless to say, they went through a lot of coffee. Unfortunately, going at this pace is leading to burnout. Even with a full crew compartment, the workload it didn't stop. The only bright side is Joe and his ship, always ready to repair the drone she may have, sending out some of his own to help her out, lend out some of his personnel, and even trying to rotate out his personnel so that some of hers can get some rest. However, it seems that most of her crew refused to leave their posts, almost to the point that their pride was just making sure to see how long they could last before their heart just gives out. At one point, Joe had actually boarded his sister ships personally and physically removed some of the crew, dragging them, sometimes kicking and screaming, although usually they were so tired that their kicking wasn't going to do much, replacing them for at least the next 20 hours, taking them directly to his ship so they could get some rest, get some food, clean themselves up, get some more rest, get some more food, take another nap, and then get back to it. Joe even began to use his own warship to ferry salvage whenever possible, mainly partially destroyed vessels. He did this since his bays are designed, well, a little different than the cargo haulers. It was safer in case of a busted vessel going critical. Thankfully, that didn't happen, at least to Joe's ship. Another battleship that decided to grab some of the salvage suffered a blowout as a Corvette-class ship actually exploded inside the bay as soon as the temperature shift and the gravity kicked in. Thankfully, there was no serious injuries as everybody was waiting to move in until the artificial gravity and the magnetic locks actually pulled the ship into place. However, the bay, well, it was going to take a long time to fix. Now, one might think that this abundance of material would be more than enough to pass around. Unfortunately, this is not true. Not only is the rebuilding of Y's 4 fleet actually paramount, but there is the new colony in the Bernard sector that needs to be built up for the Chi-Chi prisoners. On top of that, the Lafande sector has been expanded on by the crew species. The crew species had been talking about their own homeworld for a while, a long time, ever since they were first discovered by humanity and questioned if they ever wanted their own homeworld. After extensive discussion, it was decided that the entire Lafande system will belong to them. Even though Lafande 3 is already colonized, Lafandes 2, 4, and 5 can actually be easily terraformed. They just haven't been given that much of attention. Up until this point, there's actually been no reason to. There's just not a populace that wanted to spread out there. But now, they have a very large population that is very interested. Terraforming efforts began as soon as they could get the ships there. However, this is going to take a lot of resources. Resources that have to come from somewhere, obviously. Resources that, no matter how much Cindy's ships bring, it's just never enough. Finally, she breaks down and realizes that they need additional resources. She calls the family for support, not really expecting too much, but as it turns out, any of the family that's able to aid with the style of ship required immediately leave, not just to help out, but hey, it's a payday, right? Even Bill sends 28% of his own crew to help. That is, once they get their pants back on. As it turns out, any salvage vessel, cargo hauler, transport, or anything else that can aid is being called in from any planet, any colony, any fleet even. The only section that does not send ships is the Foxy sector. They are far, far too busy with their own terraforming efforts, as well as the defense fleet needed to keep watch, just in case somebody tries to do something stupid. With this, the collection of salvageable material is kicked into overdrive. Bill is able to continue building his ship, yet it is still a lot slower than he would like. The resource influx actually allows the Foxy terraforming to speed up. The terraforming and the colony creations on Lafande 2, 4, and 5 are put higher on the priority list. The crew species are focused so much that many of them use their own savings to purchase land that hasn't even been terraformed yet, as well as using their own vessels if they have them to aid in the construction. To that end, they lucked out. They were very fortunate that the 3 latest created terraforming ships are actually used to create these colonies for these species who never believed they would actually have a place to call home, their own planet. The Wise 4 fleet is being built up slowly. After the previous action, they've gotten wiser. No pun intended. They focused more on ships that could take down a vast number of smaller craft. Most of their heavy hitters, like dreadnoughts and battleships, were very damaged, but that was simply due to numbers. Though none were lost, of course, it is clear that new tactics needed to be implemented. In fact, every warship captain worth his salt took this battle to heart. More emphasis were placed on upgrading the point defense systems and tertiary systems, as they're the only weapon systems that can actually rotate and turn fast enough to actually catch one of these small ships. However, they could use torpedoes and missiles, but that is also an expendable resources. And they're going to need to be able to take down these ships, especially if things get close and get personal like they did before. It's what everybody up there calls either a furball or a knife fight. It's a good thing they listened, too, as Alpha Centauri sent out a mayday, and without hesitation, the closest human-made warbirds took flight towards the area. In the Alpha Centauri sector, there is only one true planet. All the rest discovered were dwarf planets, and they don't do well in terraforming. Their unstable movements and rotations make them uninhabitable. One could harvest them if they wanted to, but unfortunately, this means there's only one planet that can be a target if any enemy enter the system. This new species arrived with a pair of dreadnoughts, several battleships, a full carrier, and is surrounded by support craft. This was not a recon flight. This was not a colonization flotilla. This was a recon by force, and a surrender or die type of force. This new enemy, another new species, these ships are just covered with interdiction shields. So many that seem to interlock with each other. Because of this, their energy signatures were actually picked up 17 hours before they even came out of FTL. Due to this, those on Alpha Centauri, one of the oldest human colonies, had plenty of time to warn everybody and prepare. Immediately recalling civilian ships, setting up a battle line, activating the satellite defense grid, priming all planetary weapons, and, of course, get the civilians into shelters fast. As these extremely bulbous, rotund ships covered in bumps arrive at Alpha Centauri, they find the defense fleet waiting. Once all the ships come out of FTL, the trespassing fleet is sent a message from Alpha Centauri, a message once again sent in the Foxy language. It says, in only audio, "Attention unknown vessels. You have just entered sovereign territory. Your presence is uninvited and unwelcome. State your intentions." It didn't take long at all for a response, this time in a holographic image that relayed the message. As the message plays, everyone is shocked at what they see, a bipedal insectoid with a nearly human face. 4 arms for sure, but only 2 legs. No bulbous abdomen that seemed to hang off their ass, but it does have antennae, and it's clear that they also have wings that seem to flutter almost every time they speak. It stood as though it's some sort of authority as it spoke out. Once again, the shipboard AI relayed the message. "This discovered planet and its inhabitants are now under the protection and rule of the Empire. You shall be grateful that we show you mercy, as such unsightly vessels betray your outdated and obsolete culture. Inform your Emperor that we are arriving. Have their best and most beautiful family jewels ready for our inspection. Those not worthy shall be cast even lower than those that serve in chains. Perhaps you shall even be granted the honor of being our meal. Do not bother to resist, as we are more than willing to annihilate all that do not kneel and bow in respect. Your earlier disrespect will be the only one overlooked. Now, power down and lay down your weapons. Everybody who listened to this, on or above Alpha Centauri, were already ready to beat some manners into this arrogant bug. Everybody was sending out their own signal of, I want to kill this guy, I want to squash him. The fleet admiral that had heard this speech only had a few moments to think of a response before several dozen human warships arrived, each one powering their weapons, turning their turrets, locking onto targets. In response came from the admiral, "You want our weapons? Come and take them." It only took a minute, one solid minute, before the response was clear. The fat warships of the bugs began to turn away. It was clear to even a blind man that the bugs were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and out of options. As they're leaving, the bugs sent a message that said, "We will not forget this disrespect you have shown here. We will have that planet. We will have your ships and we will have your lives." The admiral sent the message back in the foxy language, "You'll have the devil's own task taking this planet. Now do yourself and your species a favor. Do not come back." After this, several of the ships that just arrived stuck around for a while, just in case. When the news reached Bill, he immediately contacted his children. He didn't unclench himself until he contacted both of them. Aya was almost unconsolable until she could see them on her screen. Joe was able to actually brief everybody on what happened since he was there. All of the family listened intently as he spoke and were not happy that there had been another incursion into human territory. After the calls were done, Aya and Bill are talking about how things are heating up. Aya is very confident that humanity's forces could easily defend its borders from any attack. Bill himself isn't so sure, as he's far too paranoid. He says, "Honey, we just don't know what's going to happen. This is the third time a species has tried to claim us as their own." He then turns to look her in the eye and say, "Listen, if they had sent a fleet instead of those dumpers, we, humanity, would all be in chains or worse, and you would have been erased for sure. And I'll tell you what, just the thought of that is enough to make my teeth hurt." Aya looked up at him and said, "I concur. It seems as though these incursions are happening with greater frequency. It's as though they're probing us." Bill immediately responded, "Yeah, I really don't like it." Aya then kind of grinned and said, "I am well aware of your aversion to being probed, but shouldn't we stay on topic?" Both of them paused, looked at each other, and laughed, thankfully lighting the mood. Bill then pulled her close and took in a deep breath before saying, "You're right. We need to stay on target. Unfortunately, that means we won't be able to visit the island for a while. It's a shame, really. I wanted to be on the new island alone with you, at least for a while." Aya, closing her eyes, but pushing her head deeper into his strong chest. "You know, most of the crew is gone right now. I'm pretty sure we will be alone for a while now." Bill pauses. "Babe, you always know how to relax me." Aya responds with, "Oh, it's not hard." Bill looks down and says, "You want to bet?" Around the different sectors, everybody is pretty much thinking the same thing. Not the intimate action, but the incursions. How they're coming faster and faster. It is true that they just scared off this last species. However, nobody knows what may be coming out of the void. No one knows what, where, or when. Because of that, humanity as a whole continues with their preparations. They prepare, as deep in the void they know that monsters lurk. Monsters that will do anything to get what they desire. Their vanity, their greed, their arrogance, all of which that can arrive at any time. And should that time come, like any good man or woman protecting their home, their family, they need to be ready to look that aggressor in the eye and blow their fucking heads off. Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on Part 9 of this ongoing series. Now before I go, I need to say today's winner is Chris Dixon. And I also need to send out some great big thank yous to the supporters of the channel, and those would be Prozac and Pancakes, Sir, SS Demon, Brian Kemp, The Lockeen, MTF Guard, Guardian Sage, Douglas Scarborough, and Erica Gem. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax.
Ejecting pilot.